Coming up, tell me if you've heard this story before. The Brooklyn Nets played a scrappy kind of game against the Indiana Pacers and still lost in the end. Trendon Watford wasn't suspended and had a heck of a game. Plus, the NCAA tournament and players to keep your eyes on. We dive in. Coming up next.
You are Locked On Nets, your daily Brooklyn Nets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, my friends, it is the Locked On Nets podcast, right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team, the Brooklyn Nets, every single day. He's Doug Norrie. I'm Adam Armick. We thank you, as always, for making us your first listen today. We're 100% free on all those great platforms. And let you know that today's episode is brought to you by Gametime and also by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use promo code LOCKEDON at monarchmoney.com, 50% off your first year. And Doug, another day, another game, another loss for the Brooklyn Nets.
Yeah, I mean, this is becoming a theme. It's where they just, if you're pro-tank, they scare the heck out of you. If you're anti-tank, you probably like that they're just scrap you all the way through, and then you can probably deal with the loss on some fundamental level. And this is just, again, where they're getting kind of blown out in the third quarter. They're down, I think, 17 at one point, and then they just, Pacers don't realize the game isn't over yet, and they put up 33 points. The Nets put up 33 points in the fourth quarter. It probably looks a little closer than it was on paper at 103, 108, 103, but it was mostly because these late game sequences, it's just completely over. And the Nets are like, no, and Cam Johnson and one, steal, Trendon Watford 3, Pascal Siakam misses a free throw. Now they get Keon Johnson down the hill. Now they're still in it. Now they got to go to the line. It's like this whole thing. It's like this game is so over. And all of a sudden, the Nets are just like, well, it's not over till the final buzzer sounds, and they stay in it, and they still maintain their stuff. So I guess no matter where you are on the Nets aisle of where they should be in terms of effort and wins, I guess you feel pretty good about this game, but it's just another one of these examples where they just refuse to roll over, and it kind of doesn't matter who's playing for them.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned we're going to get into Trendon Watford here a little bit more, but these games, when they are still losing, if you fall on either side of it, but you see good development from some young guys, right? You feel like maybe there's more conversations as we've had about Zaire Williams. We unfortunately had a bit of a negative conversation around Jalen Wilson after the last game, although, bounce back performance for him from a shooting standpoint, one of the better ones we've seen from him in a while. So, you take those little things, I do think there's a part of me that thinks it's funny where you watch the game through and you go, wow, they're getting blown up by the Pacers. Like, what's the point here? And when they do that comeback, I do, as a natural pure fan, I go, well, couldn't you just been competitive to start the game? Like, why not just do this like the whole game? Because it does get exciting at the end. Now, I'll deal with the fallout of if they won the game and what it meant for tanking odds. But in the moment, I think this is why it's so difficult probably for Jordi Fernandez to make real hay this season in terms of progress. Because it's not like these guys aren't putting in the effort. It just took until the fourth quarter for them to actually piece together possessions like this. And it probably takes your opponent stepping off the gas, mentally shutting down for 10 minutes for you to get back into a game.
Okay, you got there, because it's that last part. That's what it is, right? It's like this. If you roll the walls out here and look at these two teams, the Pacers are a good team this year. They're 41-29. They're just getting Halliburton back. Like, Halliburton had missed, I think, like the 3 previous games or something like that. And this is a team that's probably not going to it's not going to the finals or anything, but it could give a team, you can see them in the Eastern Conference Finals if they really ran hot, right? It'd be tough, but still, they're a very good team, right? And they're essentially full strength here in this game. And then you look across the court and it's like, okay, Tyrese Martin, Keon Johnson, Cam Johnson, Jalen Wilson, Nick Claxton. Like, the Nets shouldn't be in it at all, right? And they weren't. And then you get to the fourth quarter, and like you said at the end, they take their foot off the gas. The Pacers take their foot off the gas a little bit, and all of a sudden, Nets bang home some threes. They're out in transition a little bit. They're still playing very hard.
Yeah.
And we've said this a lot of times, where I know this is the case, because you can see it on the court, where the other teams are kind of like, come on, we're doing this right now? Like, we're doing this, like we're doubling the ball here. We're still doubling the ball down 17. And Halliburton actually even said something like this in the post game, where he goes, I'm going to get the wording a little bit wrong, but the gestalt will be correct here. It was like, they threw a bunch of junk defenses at us, 2 at the ball, and we just had to be able to get out of it. And we had to make open shots, and we didn't. Even he's recognizing that, like, they're doing stuff. It's like sort of gimmicky with the hope that, like, it'll just flummox you or fluster you and you won't be able to get into your offenses. And we've seen this all season long with the Nets doing this. And I think there's times where the teams are like, come on, like, we're killing you guys. Can it just be over and we can go home here? And
Yeah, yeah.
I think that like that mentality is what keeps them in the game a lot.
Well, by the way, though, it's and as you say, Halliburton mentioned, it's like, and we didn't make the shots. Like, well, right, okay, so shame on you because you could have. Because by the way, the
Totally.
junk defense it stops a lot more quickly if you see the two guys are getting thrown at you and you go ahead and you get the ball out and then you knock down the shot and then just makes it instead of a 15, makes it an 18 instead of an 18. Then it does end. Like the Nets will stop at a certain point of the game in the fourth quarter if all you do is break that quote unquote junk defense and knock down a couple of shots. So I think it's funny. And I guess you're probably right around the NBA circles. I'm assuming that when players do talk, probably even to players on the Nets, like when people talk to Cam Johnson, veteran of the NBA, they're probably like, dude, pregame, everyone's dapping up a little bit before the ball goes up.
I think they respect it. I think they respect it. Yeah.
No, 100%.
Yeah.
But is this going to be one of those nights? Be like, it's always one of those nights. You're playing the Brooklyn Nets. It's always going to be one of those nights. Sorry, like feel free to get ready for the full 48, even if we are a team that has 23 wins currently on the season and is doing far more battling to the bottom with Philadelphia and with Toronto nipping at their heels than they are actually trying to go out and win some of these games.
And when we see and when you see them play like this, it's not like a perfect example, but they do take this approach where it defensively, where it causes you a lot of problems, but it can cause the Nets a lot of problems if you can get out of it quickly, right? Like if you can get out of this stuff, like the doubles, the high traps quickly, you're dead. Like the Nets are dead. They're going to get completely blitzed at the rim because you're just already you're at a 4 versus 3 disadvantage after that, right? But we've seen them do it multiple times.
Like that.
Totally. It's like the old soccer style when whoever was the coach, Klinsmann, I guess, was the coach. And it was like, we're just going to play super wide open and we might stay in games, but we might lose 6-0. Right. It's we might lose 6-0, but when we're talent deficient, it's kind of the only way we can do it. We can't do it another way. We're going to have to try to outflank you, use some speed and try to get some cheap goals here. This style could lead us to getting completely crushed. Right. But it can also keep us in games when we're undermanned. The Nets are taking a somewhat similar approach. It's like we're gonna throw a lot of bodies at the ball. If you only have kind of one guard, then you're gonna get all the attention. And if you have, the Pacers have an off-ball wing sort of creator in Siakam. They have Nembhard who can do a little bit of work too. So they have some other guys where it's not going to work perfectly against, right? And so but it's a recognition that they are doing this stuff. So when you hear Halliburton say this, it's like, oh yeah, they get it. They're throwing this stuff at them. There's no other way for them to do it. They can't stand toe-to-toe with these teams. Talent-wise, if you're just going to get into a half-court game where everyone just kind of plays base-level stuff, the Nets are going to lose by 25. For sure, they don't have the talent, so they have to throw this stuff at them.
And even with that, 108-103. What a battle down to the wire. The Brooklyn Nets still lost. We'll talk about coming up here in a second. Some of the performers that stood out, Trendon Watford, getting him back into the mix maybe of a player that needs to be brought back this summer. How many members? Maybe we bring the whole team back. I changed nothing. That could be a policy too. We don't know for sure what Brooklyn's going to do. We'll also take a look at the NCAA tournament and a couple of players that made good impressions for that maybe 4th or 5th pick overall the Nets could land. We'll do that here in just one moment.
Before we get to that, tell your friends over at Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder where'd all that money go? You got dining out, you got online shopping, you got entertainment. It's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO. You like to hear that? It's a little C-suite, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You track all your accounts, investments, spending in one place. You stop managing money. You start building wealth. You start using Monarch Money. You realize how much you might be spending on food delivery. You just budget a little bit smarter. You save more. It's got all-in-one convenience. You're not juggling multiple apps. You check your finances. You track your spending. You even plan those long-term goals. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. monarchmoney.com.
All right, as we continue today's Locked On Nets episode, talking about the 108-103 loss for the Brooklyn Nets, we will talk about, I don't think I mentioned it at the end, the tank odds. There's something fascinating going on for me when you look and you see that Miami is 0-10. These guys mean business. They are hurdling over people, trying to get into that mix there for one of the best picks. But in this game, after the almost could have been attempted melee in the previous matchup of these two teams, Trendon Watford did get fined, but he ended up playing in this one and played quite well. 30 minutes, 9 of 14, 2 of 4 from deep, 6 of 10 at the line, got there in bunches along with his 5 rebounds, assists, steal, 26 points on the night. we talked about this with so many different players, and Cam Thomas was the guy. Maybe Trendon Watford can, do some things for himself down the stretch of this season in terms of how the organization looks at him when it comes to retaining a handful of guys going into the draft.
Yeah, you just never know. We've been years and years with this. It's like the guys we were sure about were Claxton, and we were sure about Claxton, and we were sure about Cam Johnson in terms of like the Nets going to offer them something. With everyone else, it's been kind of a mystery. We just don't know. Watford, not sure. Daron Sharp, not sure. Cam Thomas, obviously, not sure. Like, so I don't really know how they internally evaluate all these guys, especially with the draft coming up. But Watford was the whole reason they were even in this game. He was like he was the whole reason. Like, he did most of the scoring here in the second half. He was getting to the line. He's able to get downhill. No one else on this team is able to get downhill, really. I mean, Keon Johnson a little bit, but not really. And, he's able to Euro step in the lane. He's got that little floater. He has some stuff that just works when he can get the ball and cook. I think like some of his like sort of league wide, let me put it this way. I think he's considerably more valuable to this Nets team than he would be to any other team. Who's like, does that make sense? Like, I think like the Nets can use his skill set as someone who can kind of shimmy and shake his way into the lane
because of
like other teams. Like they just wouldn't be able to, they just wouldn't be allowed to do that. Like if you put them on other teams, they have other guys who can do that. Right. And so the Nets just don't have it. It's not a knock on him. He's been really good. I'm just saying that I don't think you would see this. Like, is there another situation in the NBA where Trendon Watford's getting up 14 shots in 30 minutes, right? Probably not. But when he does it, it's been decently efficient. The Nets desperately need a guy like this when if they are just trying to be competitive in games, because he's able to control the ball a little bit, play like a little, quasi point guard. Again, like get his size into the lane. He's a big guy. He's hard to deal with down there if you kind of, if you don't tag him like coming off the roll. So I like it. It's just always a little confusing about like what the value is. Like, I'm just not sure. I think most fans would agree they want him back, but I mean, are you confident that the Nets like just totally love it? I just never know. I just can never tell with some of these guys. It's mostly just me kind of shrugging my shoulders and being confused.
Yeah, and it's interesting too because like this, as feels like the case with a lot of these conversations, it's like, oh, like I wonder what it is for the player too, because you kind of make the point. And I don't know, players don't think about it this way. Maybe their agents do, though. When they're talking about the prospects of what will it look like once the Brooklyn Nets have 4 more players into the room, and potentially, like you look at Trendon Watford, we said we wanted to see like that next step for him, and he got back to what he was doing really in Portland that last year, playing 19 minutes a game. Now, the difference here has been in this year that the 3-point shooting has gone down. He's averaging 19 minutes. He's only played in 33 games with the injuries, but he's giving you 32% from beyond the arc, not 39, almost 40% that he was last year. And he's only taking 2 threes a game. All the other aspects that you talk about, like I think that's the part of his game you have to wonder, is if you shrink all of it and you really talk about him being a guy who is athletic, can get out and run, we think can knock down the perimeter shot. And I think if you put him into that role more consistently, then he'll do that more frequently. But there wasn't a big increase in rebounds from last year to this year, playing 6 more minutes a game. There was a 1 more assist per game average bump for him, but the turnovers are almost 2. And to your point, it's like that's the exploring the studio space of his game that you're probably not getting if he's in his ideal role or if he's on a better team. So I have a hard time looking at those stats and thinking, does Trendon Watford believe that this is the best place for him to advance his career if he sticks around here? Because I don't think it's going to be some crazy offer, right? Or does he think maybe he's showcasing enough that another low end, back end of the league kind of team says, oh, we'll give you a decent contract because we want you to keep doing, running the point a little bit at times. We want you to be attacking in the lane, maybe getting up 10 to 13 shots a night. There's probably some teams that would be willing to have him do that for them. I just don't know if they'll pay a little bit more than the Nets would. And I think if you're Brooklyn, like, you kind of hope nobody does, because you'd like to have him on your bench as your, I don't know, 10th, 8th to 10th guy. That'd be fine. You can't have him be your 4th. You can't have him be your 3rd. And you can't have him be your best scorer on a night like this when you're playing against the Pacers.
My guess is they bring him back because he's versatile enough. And when you have an unknown situation, versatility counts for a lot. When you have a known situation, versatility counts for a little less, right? Like, so you just...
And even all the draft picks, you're still going to have unknowns with who you bring in and what.
Totally. And you're going to need guys who are like sort of fit independent, and you're going to need to like, and have sort of guys that can kind of play in a lot of different archetypes, not knowing who's going to come in. I think that alone probably helps him a lot, where it's like, it helps him in a way that doesn't like help Daron Sharp, let's say, right?
Yep.
Where it's like,
Yep.
well, Sharp, it's like we kind of know who you can play with and who you can't play with, and that's basically the end of the story. I don't think it like hurts him in terms of whether he gets a contract or not, but it for sure hurts him in like being able to future cast a little bit around who you're gonna be able to play with. I think Watford, you can say, well, it doesn't matter who we drafted, he could probably play with them, right? And so, if we draft, we'll talk about these point guards in a second, but like if they draft a point guard, he can play with them. If they draft a center, he can play with them, and because that's just the nature of his game. That is that's what I meant. It's like considerably more valuable for them than it would be. I mean, I'll take it like this is not a good example because they don't have this, but like let's say like the Celtics had free agent cap space, like he wouldn't be a good person to put there because they kind of are known of what all their guys can do, right? All their guys can do X, Y, Z, and at that point you just need total specialists to figure it out. Like, a big at the rim who can block shots, a guy who can only hit 3-pointer. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like you're just not sure. You don't need to have this jack of all trades. The Nets probably are going to need a guy like this because they're going to be bringing along a bunch of young guys who it's not going to be clear how they all fit together. And you want to give those guys the best chance to succeed. So I think that in the end, they probably value that a little bit. But I don't think he's going to have like some bidding war out there in the NBA around. If he was shooting 37% this year on increased volume, then I'd say something differently, but he's just not. Now, it's discounted a little bit because the Nets get bad looks because the offense stinks. So, like, you have to like factor that in a little bit. But, he went from 39% on about an attempt a game down to, doubled the attempts and dropped down to 9%. So it's just like didn't go the direction you want it to be. But the offense is bad. So it's like it's not all these are like super clean looks either.
And it's funny too, because one of the other things I'll say before we get into the NCAA tournament here a little bit is that I also think keeping some of these guys around on what isn't going to be big cost contracts, and then maybe when you get better talent in, but it's still not a Boston Celtics built roster, and some of these guys do look pretty good, then you can have other conversations about, oh, maybe we can dump them off in something. Maybe we can put together a package. Maybe the money means something when you want to continue to adjust this team. We said this before. This roster is going to evolve what will feel like pretty rapidly over the next season. And by the time we get to like next off season, you'll be thinking about, well, here's the 3-4 core guys and what's everybody else. And then it's another big draft class. So, 3 years from now, when you look at back at the Brooklyn Nets, remember these names fondly because most of them aren't going to be here regardless of whether or not they get this contract in the upcoming summer. That being the case, coming up here in a moment, there was some NCAA basketball going on over the course of the last handful of days. That tournament moves pretty fast, in my opinion, because there are a couple of players, including the point guard Jeremiah Fears, who put on a show, but also went home. We'll talk about what that means for the Nets' outlook in the draft here in just one moment. All right, so as we think about, and I will just say, still things to pay attention to coming out of this last Pacers game, looking over the tank odds, and I said, Miami, man, they throttled it. 0-10 in their last 10, 29-41. They're in the 8th position now. They're up to 26.3% chance to get a top 4 pick. Meanwhile, however you feel about the Brooklyn Nets and their ways about going about, and these players will discuss, Chicago's 7-3 in their last 10. They're 31-40. They actually, I want to real quick ask you, do they, to you, represent, not as a team and the players that comprise it, but they to me represent like what we talked about briefly throughout this season? What would be willing to blow your tank odds about? They're 31-40. I think like if the Nets were in those kind of waters where we're talking like the 35, 36 wins, you might be able to tell yourself a different story of like these players because they all would have been performing that much better. The Nets didn't get there, but Chicago seems to be living in those waters with some nice young players.
Yeah. I just hate that. I hate this middling, not going to be good enough to be great. And like
ninth,
willing
they're
to,
in the playing tournament, baby. 9th seed. Watch out.
Who cares? Who cares?
Yeah, well, sure.
I just not the point. It's not the point. And I wouldn't even put the point as championships. I would put the point as like, could we make the Eastern Conference finals, right? The semifinals. Like, could we make like, are we good enough to get there? I want to back like the success ratio back a little bit from like just win the championship or bust, because like the odds are so small on it that like let's talk about like what success looks like for a team. If you can make the Eastern Conference your conference finals, I think that's like, I always want to use that as like the new barometer of like if a team is like worth it to really try, right? And so because that's
I agree with you. I would even go a step further back, not in terms of what the ultimate goal is, but I'd say like if you're second round competitive, as in like you are in your second round series, not getting bounced, whatever, that to me is like that means that you're there, right? That means that you are at a point when year over year, maybe you win that and you get to the Eastern Conference Finals and you continue to have that conversation. If that's your baseline, I think your fan base is very satisfied with that as like a jumping off point. And then you're talking about the stars you want to add.
Yeah, like you win a first round play. I get it. It's like
Yes.
probably semantics at that point, but I just want to say that it's
Yeah.
like I'm dialing it back from it's like all championship or bust because I think that's just a little too reductive in like figuring out if someone is like successful or not. Little NCAA tournament stuff. So there are these couple of point guards here. They have Jeremiah Fears. He gets bounced. Kasparas Jakucionis, which I these names are the impossible for me. And I've heard this one a ton, obviously for watching, but like I just if there's 4 syllables, like your boy is just going to struggle a little bit. So but I don't know if you have thoughts here. Like these are we lump them together because there's kind of 2 point guards, and right now they sit right in the range of where the Nets would theoretically have the best odds to draft, which is right around 5th. And it's kind of a tight group of 3 at the top with Cooper Flagg, Harper, and Ace Bailey. VJ Edgecombe, I mean, I've seen some people make the case that he can maybe be a little higher, but I think it's a little bit more all over the place. It's this next group that is like, there doesn't seem to be clear consensus, like this 5 through 10. I think everyone agrees that it's really talented, but it's not. This might be a personal board wins out, like per team. Like each team is going to evaluate this group of guys pretty differently. And so I don't know, when you think about these 2 point guards, I don't think, real quick, I'm saying forever on this. I don't think the Nets should be drafting for need at all. It's all best player available at this point. We're putting these 2 guys together because they just happen to be point guards here, and it's clear that they exist like below the Dylan Harper category. But I don't know. What are your thoughts here on these 2 guys? It's like they kind of, one's still in the tournament, one's not.
The most important thing on these 2 guys is that they played well and for however long they were able to showcase it, right? And you said Fear's already out, but he looked good and he looked like he was able to take on. Talk about some of the shot creation that he has. Talk about his ability to attack at the rim. Now you can go the layer deeper on what his size is, and we always talk about those kind of things. There's been some that have said like in the last couple of years, you kind of talk more about like what is the skill set and less about the size because the games become more and more positionless. Like, okay, but I still do want a player of a certain stature. It's why when Jakucionis, we'll assume that we're saying it perfectly. When you look at him and you talk about a 6'6" kind of playmaker facilitator, that gets you excited. The most important thing with him or with Fears, or as I say, like Edgecombe has come up a little bit on the radar, and you can even throw in like someone to keep watching for Duke and Malik, the center, is that all these guys are playing well, which means that the Nets are in a good position. It doesn't mean we don't want the number 1 overall pick. You hope the ping pong balls bounce your way. It'd be a different story in what's supposed to be a deep draft class if some of these players start to go, didn't look so good, right? That was a rough matchup there. Didn't come out looking like he's a player worthy of a top 10. Instead, you have more guys being cemented as top 10, as top 7, as top 5 guys, as opposed to going the other way. That's my most important thing, is that the pool is not getting shallower. It's getting deeper for the Brooklyn Nets. And it also means that every time one guy goes up the board, whoever's trickling back down there, the Nets have 3 more picks in the first round of the draft. And you could see guys that maybe were edge lottery now becoming 18 to 20. And maybe that means the Brooklyn Nets add another piece there, which is the most important thing for them.
Yeah, having a deep draft is definitely going to help him here. This draft is incredibly deep, especially as you even get into the teens. Like this one is, I mean, clearly there's a massive teardrop after Cooper Flagg, but it's not so much like a lot of these guys would have been number 1 last year, right? Like if this was the group, like if they replaced a lot of this group, they would have all been, there would have been a big time grouping of like guys who would have been like Harper, number 1 for sure. Basically, Bailey would have been number 1 for sure. Probably VJ Edgecombe too would have been number 1 over Risa Shea. And so, like, I don't think that's not a problem here. It's just that it's starkly different at the top. That is the clear prize. I will say for me, I would the size on some of these guys, like the Fears. I get he gets downhill. He's lightning fast. He's good. He has really good court vision. He looks pretty good in the pick and roll. Like he's like clearly like got like those kind of like traditional number 1 skills as a point guard. It looks right in the college level. I would be very concerned about the size once you get up to the next level. Like it's just you have to be so good. If you're smaller, like if you're 6'4", which he is, at like 180, 190, let's say he bulks up a little bit, like you have to be so good. Like it's just very hard to find these guys that are this size who are just getting by on speed and athleticism on a really good team, right? Like that's just not how it's working right now. Like go through the teams that are good. If their point guards are super versatile, are on the bigger side, or just shoot the absolute lights out, which he doesn't. And so it's like I get a little worried when you're getting by. It's not getting by because it's like being a little bit unfair because he's good. He's very good and he's had some huge games. But if it's a speed and athleticism thing to kind of make up for the fact that it's not super efficient from a scoring level, then I do get very concerned about like what the high end upside can be, unless the shooting just comes all the way around, which it can. Like he might but if at that point I would default to size, which Jakucionis definitely has, and also has vision, does not have the same burst, but like playing high pick and roll, being able to read and react, being able to see over smaller defenders. It's worth a lot. I mean, Harper has that too, right? He's like bigger, and just like has bigger and so that's my one fears worry. It's like, it pops off the page on the college level. He will be a high draft pick. There's a good chance he's very good, but at like when we're talking about that Eastern Conference, let's roll to the conference semifinals kind of thing. If you're undersized, you will get exposed, like at the highest levels. That's just my only kind of high level concern.
And but it's the reality, right? Even if you're a great offensive player, especially in playoff basketball, and now all of a sudden, like that's the pick on player, like let's switch it every time, get it onto him. Like, listen, you can fight and scrap. And we talked about this even with Cam Thomas as a 2-guard, right? And him just being like, hey, you got to be a speed bump. You got to get in their way a little bit. You got to use some of your physicality. Yeah, you do. But you're also setting the bar incredibly low about what the expectations are there because of size and because of skill. So it'll be interesting with fears. That's why, I mean, I don't even, I'm not going to like put my name to it, but like Kasparas, man, when you go and you see like, and his 3-point shooting wasn't good, but he got to like 9 trips to the line, perfect there, 9 rebounds, 10 assists, and really on the very, very simplest of levels, he can see over top of a lot of people. A lot of his passes are about being ahead and a little bit of shoulders above the defender that's on you and finding some of these wing perimeter shooters, giving them easy knockdown looks. And if you think about Cam Thomas in the summer and you think about the Nets giving him a contract and you end up in that spot where Kasparas is there for you, you can start to pair those. You think about that backcourt and you go, oh, that probably makes Cam Thomas's life a lot easier if you have a large point guard running it alongside of him, like we kind of talked about. The facilitation of a Ben Simmons, that opens things up for a Cam Thomas, right? And then you put some shooting with it and it makes it better than Ben Simmons. But that'd be the idea there for me too. There's probably another conversation for us to have down the line about how many point guards there are in the draft. Like you mentioned about drafting for need versus best available. There's probably some balance sheet that the Nets do look at when they have 4 picks like this and say, if we take player X here, best available, but if we want to construct our roster a certain way, are there prospects that we earmark throughout the rest of the first round that create a balanced team by the end of it? In the end, the best guy, and then we'll make our decision on the next guy and the next guy. But I find that part of it fascinating as the tournament rolls on.
Yeah, it's just tough. And like maybe I'm being a little unfair about the point guard thing where it's like, okay, some of these teams just do have sort of smaller point guards, but they just like, I don't know, they strike me as just slightly more physical. Like, obviously, Garland's playing with the Cavs or, I mean, not Van Vliet, I guess, but like the Rockets have been pretty good this year, right? Like there are some guys, but they just all strike me as like sort of having slightly more physicality than Fears does at this point. Because if you look, think about like what are the Fears comps? It's like Scoot Henderson, maybe, right? Like Jaden Ivey. I don't know. Like these guys who are like super downhill, very athletic and good, but I get a little concerned about like where they are. And I'm not sure who, Jakucionis is like straight up comps are like for size. I mean, Halliburton, I don't know. Like it's like, that's not fair. He's not Halliburton, but like, I'm just trying to think of like these sort of like bigger guys who are like a little bit like taller, lankier, but have some size and can kind of like see over defenders and have some speed. The Halliburton thing, I'll probably get roasted for, but like you know what I mean? Like, I just don't, it's just a little harder for me to see it. And you're right too, to say that this point guard class is very deep. I mean, there are other guys here. So I don't know. This one's close. I think it's very clear to me why Jakucionis is like above him, right? Like in terms of just mocks right now. I don't think that that's wrong by any stretch of the imagination. I can also find, Jakucionis has like some speed concerns probably that like would not translate. I don't know. Right. I don't have like a super clear take on this. It's just, I get a little worried when it's just all athleticism or it strikes me as like over pushed onto athleticism. That's all.
Well, and that's, and because one of the things with Kasparas is that they say like, like basketball IQ is there. So this is a guy that understands the game. And you go, well, that's important because
Fears has that too.
Fears has so well. Yeah.
Fears has like incredible vision. He has basketball IQ too.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
that. So I'm saying is we're just gonna like make it all equal. Then you just go for the guy who's got 25 pounds and 2.5 inches on him. Like that's
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Sometimes it's as simple as that. Like, just give me the bigger guy, and then we'll see those other things come along. And by the way, like for all that we're talking about them, like it's just a reminder too that Fears, is under a 30% shooter from beyond the arc, right? Like 34 games, averaging almost 5 attempts a game from deep on sub 30. So that starts to factor into things here too. If you're very good in one area, if you're deficient in an area, I should say, then you better be excellent everywhere else. And then you better be big enough, right? And he is only not even 19 years old yet. He's one of the youngest guys in the draft. So he can bulk up, he can get bigger, all those things. But it's just easier, at least for me. And probably it sounds like you're saying too. Just easier when I look at it and it already looks like the right size and measurables that you want. And then you start to work on where's the skill set and where's the fit going to go.
Well, here's the one thing you can trust. No matter who the Nets draft, I'm going to the next day come on here and make the strongest case ever about why that guy was definitely the right pick. Yeah. Don't worry about that. I'm just telling you that right now. So they could pick anybody. They can go off board here, and I'd be like, God, genius, so smart. Like I love it. It's because we just do nothing but compliment. Just kidding. Yeah. All right. When they pick 8th and we're all just crying in our towels. That'll be the fun place to be. All right. With that, we're gonna get out of here. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On Nets over on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to wherever you listen, podcast, Spotify, iTunes. If there's other ones, I don't know. Give it a rate and review out of those other ones that are the off-brand ones too. But mostly those 3 places. Rate and review wherever you listen. 5 stars or bust. Free for you. Really helps us.
Little drops of water make the mighty ocean. That is Julia Carney.
Oh, don't know who that is. R.I.P. She's alive. The person alive or no?
Yeah, let's be optimistic.
I'll tell you what she is, though. One of the all-time great poets. We'll be back again tomorrow talking more Brooklyn Nets basketball.
Basketball.